You're not really confused about women. You're just tired of the games. Tired of asking and never really knowing the truth. Tired of guessing, hoping, overthinking, while she holds all the cards. But what if you didn't need to ask? What if you could see her past? Not from the stories she tells, but from the signs she doesn't even know she's showing. Because women don't just talk about their past, they live it. In their reactions, in their silence, in the way they look at you when you say certain words. It's all there, if you know how to see it. This isn't about being a mind reader. It's about emotional intelligence. It's about becoming the kind of man who doesn't chase answers. He observes. And once you learn how to see clearly, you'll never get blindsided again. So take a breath, lean in, and give yourself 15 minutes to watch this video. Because by the end of it, you'll see her differently. And more importantly, you'll start seeing yourself with clarity too. If you're ready to stop guessing and start understanding, hit that subscribe button, like if this speaks to you. Share this with a man who's been stuck in the dark for too long. Let's elevate together. Most guys fall into the same trap when they're getting to know a woman. They start asking questions. Questions about her past, her exes, her childhood, her last heartbreak. And on the surface, it feels genuine, right? Like you're trying to form a real connection. But here's the catch. The moment you ask, her guard goes up. She starts editing, filtering. Not because she's trying to deceive you, but because it's human nature. It's how we protect our hearts. And the version of her past you hear, it's not the truth. It's the version she's curated just enough to feel safe. But what if you didn't need to ask? What if you could understand her past without ever hearing the story she wants you to hear? What if the real truth isn't in the words she says, but in the little signs she doesn't even realize she's showing? Because here's the deeper truth. People don't just talk about their past. They carry it with them. It lives in their patterns, their reflexes, their silence, the way they flinch at certain words or suddenly go quiet when a subject hits too close. Her past? It's written in the way she looks at you when you get close, in how she tenses or softens during vulnerable moments. You don't have to play detective. You don't have to dig through her stories or interrogate her. All you have to do is watch, because when you learn how to observe instead of chase, you'll begin to see the version of her most people miss, even her closest friends. You'll sense if she's still haunted by someone. You'll know whether she's healed or just pretending. You'll know if she's ready to build something real or still living in the ruins of something she hasn't let go of. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how to recognize those subtle clues, what they truly mean, and most importantly, how to protect your heart from stepping into a story you were never meant to be a part of. Let's start with the first sign, her relationship with attention. If you want to understand where a woman's coming from emotionally, one of the clearest windows is how she responds to attention, especially from men. It's not just about how she reacts when you compliment her. It's how she moves through a room, how she navigates social media, how she behaves when the spotlight finds her. Does she brush it off with ease, staying grounded and calm, or does she light up, like someone who hasn't felt truly seen in years? Pay attention to how often she brings up male attention without being asked. Is she constantly mentioning her DMs, talking about how many guys hit on her at the gym, complaining that men just won't leave her alone? Sometimes it's not about the stories, it's about the need those stories are masking. Let's keep going, because what you'll see next goes even deeper. It's not just about how she handles attention, but why she seeks it. A woman who's been overlooked, ignored, or made to feel invisible, whether in a past relationship or even during childhood, often develops a quiet, invisible hunger for validation. She learns often without realizing it to measure her worth by how much attention she gets. Not because she's vain or self-obsessed, but because somewhere along the way, being seen became her way of feeling safe. It's subtle. It's deep. And most of the time, even she isn't fully aware of it. There's a massive difference between a woman who enjoys attention and one who needs it to feel complete. One is lighthearted, confident, magnetic. The other, emotionally fragile. Because if you stop giving her that attention, even for a moment, she might subconsciously start looking for it somewhere else. Not out of malice or disloyalty, but out of emotional habit, almost like an addiction. She's chasing something that once made her feel worthy. And unless she's healed from that cycle, the pattern tends to repeat. So how can you tell which woman you're dealing with? Don't focus on how she dresses or how many selfies she posts. That's surface-level noise. Focus on why. Does she seem like someone craving admiration or craving connection? That one question can reveal more about her emotional past than hours of conversation ever could. Now let's move to sign 2, how she talks about other women. This one's easy to miss but incredibly revealing. You can tell a lot about a woman not just by how she talks to you, but by how she talks about others, especially other women. Listen closely when she mentions her friends, co-workers, or even random strangers. What's her tone? Is it supportive and warm, or is it sharp, filled with sarcasm, judgment, or low-key competition? If every woman she brings up is labeled as fake, a mess, doing the most, or probably cheating on her boyfriend, that's not just a sassy personality trait. That's a red flag waving at you, showing deeper insecurities, betrayals, or unresolved wounds from her past. See, when a woman constantly tears down others, she's not just talking, she's projecting. That's emotional history trying to express itself in disguise. Maybe she always criticizes women who are flirty because she's been cheated on. Maybe she questions every successful woman she sees because she feels like she's falling behind in her own life. And when she says, "I just don't get along with other women," that's not independence. That's pain wearing a mask. It's often the sign of someone who's been betrayed by female friendships or raised in a world where competition felt like the only way to stay protected. But here's the good news. When a woman is secure in herself, she doesn't need to tear others down. She finds peace, and that peace shows in how she sees the people around her. So if every woman is a threat in her eyes, it's time to ask yourself, what happened in her past that taught her the world was a battlefield? Now let's take it a step further, because while tone and projection reveal a lot, nothing unveils emotional history quite like conflict. These are the moments when her past doesn't whisper, it shouts. And the best part, you don't have to ask. You don't have to dig. All you need to do is observe. Don't get distracted by the surface gossip. Watch for the pattern. That's where the truth hides in plain sight. Which brings us to sign 3. Her conflict style, how she responds when things go wrong. If you really want to understand someone, not just who they say they are, but who they've been shaped to become, don't just look at how they act when everything's smooth. Pay close attention to what happens when things start to crack. Because conflict, it's like a mirror. It doesn't create issues. It reveals them. I'm not talking about screaming fights or big blow-ups. I'm talking about the quiet friction when plans shift last minute, when you forget a detail she mentioned, when she feels misunderstood, unseen, or let down. That's when the real her steps forward. Does she withdraw into silence, shutting you out completely? Does she snap back, blame you instantly, or try to make you feel guilty? Or does she stay calm, talk things through, try to understand the moment with maturity? These reactions aren't random. They're emotional reflexes. They're echoes of how she learned to survive the emotional storms of her past. A woman who's been abandoned, dismissed, or betrayed emotionally whether in past relationships or even as a child, will often carry those wounds into conflict. She may shut down, not because she doesn't care, but because somewhere in her past expressing emotion meant punishment or rejection. Or she may go full defense mode, attacking before she can be hurt again. Because in her world, vulnerability has never felt safe. These are the behaviors of someone who's not fighting you, but fighting the memories you unknowingly triggered. You'll see it in how quickly she escalates a misunderstanding or how she avoids the entire topic altogether. And when she assumes the worst about your intentions without hearing you out. That's not just mistrust, it's inherited pain. She's not reacting to you. She's reacting to ghosts from her past. And this is why you don't need to dig for painful stories or force uncomfortable conversations. Because most people don't tell their emotional history, they replay it, especially in moments of stress. Conflict becomes the stage where her emotional past reenacts itself. Now your role, it's not to fix her. It's not to play therapist. Your job is to see the pattern clearly and then ask yourself the hard question, are you willing to walk with someone through their healing, or are you just an accidental audience in a battle that started long before you showed up? Either way, how she handles conflict tells you everything. So listen, not just with your ears, but with your awareness. And once you learn to spot those conflict patterns, the next layer becomes even more subtle, but just as revealing. 4. Her relationship timeline without asking directly. You don't need to blurt out, "So when was your last relationship?" to get the story. In fact, that kind of question almost always invites a polished, rehearsed version, the version she's curated for public consumption. Clean, controlled, comfortable. But here's the truth. Her real romantic timeline. It slips through when she's not trying to explain it. The clues are everywhere, if you're paying attention. In the way she casually tells stories, in how she refers to people in her past, in the words she chooses, and the ones she avoids. Take a simple sentence like, "I used to love that little sushi place. We went there all the time." That we, it's a breadcrumb. It wasn't just her and a best friend. That was a relationship moment. One she's not naming, but one that still lingers quietly beneath her words. Start listening for how often she references the past and how she frames it. A woman who says, "That was 2 years ago," isn't just telling a story. She's giving you a timeline, a marker of how far she's come, or how recent the wound still is. But when she avoids all sense of time altogether, never mentions how long ago something happened, skips over emotional chapters with vague phrases like, "some stuff happened," or "it was complicated," that's not just privacy. That might be pain. That might be a chapter that's still unresolved. And pay close attention to how she describes her transitions. If she says things like, "I had to rebuild myself," or "after everything fell apart," she's not just talking about a breakup. She's talking about a personal collapse and recovery. That's deep. That's telling. The key here? Stop relying on direct questions. You don't need to interrogate her like a detective. The real insight comes when she feels safe, relaxed, and unguarded. That's when the truth reveals itself. She'll tell you about her past, but not in bullet points or diary entries. Sometimes it'll be in her silence, in the way she skips over a season of her life without naming it. And sometimes that silence is the loudest clue of all. Your job is to become the kind of man who hears what isn't being said. 5. Her views on men in general. Now here's one of the most underestimated windows into her emotional history. Her perspective on men overall. And no, we're not talking about how she talks to you. We're talking about how she talks about men. Listen closely when she brings up her exes, her male co-workers, male celebrities, or even random guys walking past? Is her tone light, curious, neutral, or is there a sharpness to it? A bitterness that peeks through the laughter? Because when a woman casually says, "Men are the worst," and she says it often, don't just hear the joke, hear the sting behind it. That joke likely didn't come out of nowhere. It came from an experience. Maybe a few. Someone at some point made her feel unseen, betrayed, or deeply disappointed. That statement might sound playful, but repetition reveals the truth. What you're hearing isn't just sarcasm, it's emotional residue. Her tone is telling you more than her words ever will. And once you start picking up on those hidden beliefs about men, another powerful layer begins to surface. Her view of trust and where it all started. You're not just listening to her opinion, you're witnessing her trust history. When a woman casually says things like, "Men always cheat," or "You guys never really care," she's not quoting a meme. She's reflecting real scars, stories lived, not imagined. These beliefs didn't come from thin air. They came from pain, from betrayal, from years of emotional letdowns that slowly shaped the way she sees relationships. So even if she's sweet, affectionate, and playful with you now, don't assume those deeper beliefs have magically disappeared. When life gets stressful or the relationship hits a rough patch, those beliefs tend to reemerge. Loudly. She might get jumpy when you go quiet, or expect you to walk away before you've even processed what's going on. That's not her being dramatic. That's her past reappearing in real time. It's not moodiness, it's memory, taking shape in the moment. Her instincts are responding to patterns she's seen before, even if you're nothing like what came before you. And understanding this doesn't mean you judge her. It means you recognize her story fully. You see the emotional armor she's built and the wounds it's covering. You get a choice. Are you ready to build something new with her? Or are you about to step into the battlefield of someone else's unfinished story? Because here's the hard truth. If she's still carrying the emotional weight of every man who let her down, one day that weight's going to be handed to you. And when that happens, she won't say it directly, but she'll expect you to carry it, to fix it, to prove you're different, not just once, but over and over again. 6. How she talks about her family. If you really want to understand how a woman forms bonds, how she gives and receives love, start listening to how she talks about her family, especially her parents. You don't need to ask invasive questions or dig for childhood trauma. Just pay attention to the tone in her voice. It's not the dramatic stories that reveal the most. It's the subtle cues. When she brings up her dad, what do you hear? Fondness, distance, resentment, a cold shrug. That emotion, or lack of it, says more than 1,000 words. For instance, if she says something like, "Yeah, my dad was around, I guess. We weren't super close, but whatever," don't ignore that last word. That whatever is carrying weight. It's doing emotional heavy lifting. It's often the mask people wear when disappointment has become so familiar, they don't even notice it anymore. Indifference isn't always real. Sometimes it's just pain, repackaged as nonchalance. And just like that, the way she talks about her family, especially her parents, opens the door to something even deeper, her emotional blueprint. The kind of relationship she had with her father often becomes the silent script she follows when it comes to love, trust, and emotional safety. If she had to earn his affection, constantly proving she was worthy of love, then don't be surprised if she starts doing the same with you, even when you never asked her to. She might over-explain, over-apologize, or try to be enough, even when you already see her that way. And if her father's love was inconsistent, warm one day, distant the next, she might instinctively brace for that same emotional unpredictability from you. She could misread a busy day as withdrawal or interpret your silence as rejection, simply because that's the rhythm she grew up with. On the flip side, If she was raised in an environment where love felt safe, steady, and freely given, it often shows in powerful, quiet ways. You'll notice it in how she handles conflict without panic, how she communicates her needs with clarity, and how she doesn't default to fear when intimacy deepens. Her family dynamic, especially the one she had with her father, acts like the emotional operating system running in the background. Subtle, quiet, but deeply influential. It doesn't announce itself, but it shapes everything. And you're not prying when you notice these things. You're observing. You're paying attention to the tiny details. How she talks about family holidays, what her voice does when she mentions her mom, whether she lights up when recalling childhood memories or avoids them altogether. These moments, while casual on the surface, are emotional fingerprints. People don't usually outgrow the emotional language they were raised with. They just learn to speak it more quietly. So if you want to know how she'll love you, pay attention to how she learned to love in the first place. 7. What makes her emotional and what doesn't? Now, this might be one of the most revealing windows into her emotional world. What stirs her heart and what leaves her unmoved. You're not looking for dramatic meltdowns or obvious sob stories. What you're watching for are those subtle, surprising moments that hit her deeper than expected. Maybe it's a film scene about abandonment that suddenly changes her whole energy. Maybe it's a breakup song she skips every time without explanation. Or maybe it's the opposite. She doesn't flinch at situations that would make most people tear up. That emotional stillness, it might not be strength. It could be learned numbness. These aren't coincidences. They're traces of old pain, moments she never fully processed. Sometimes what moves her has nothing to do with romance. It might be something small, like being left out of a group plan or hearing someone raise their voice. And her reaction, whether it's an unexpected outburst or a complete emotional shutdown, is never just about now. It's about then. Because here's the truth. People don't overreact for no reason. Those intense emotional responses are signals, silent reminders that something similar hurt her once, and maybe still does. And pay attention to the flip side too. If she seems distant when you open up or shrugs off someone else's pain like it doesn't matter, that's another kind of clue. Emotional detachment isn't always confidence. Sometimes it's armor. And that armor, it was forged early in fires she doesn't talk about. You won't discover any of this by asking direct questions like, "So what makes you emotional?" No, this kind of understanding comes through observation. What moves her and what leaves her cold tells you far more than any story ever could. They're like highlighters tracing back to the pages of her life that shaped her most. And the more you pay attention, the clearer you'll see the line between a woman who has faced her past and one who's still being chased by it. So now that you know how emotions speak louder than words, let's bring it all together. 8. Final tip, observation over interrogation. The sharpest men, the ones who really understand women, aren't the ones asking 100 questions. They're the ones watching, quietly, intentionally. They don't need to interrogate her about every chapter of her past. They let the truth unfold on its own. In the pauses between her stories, in the way she reacts to kindness, in the little patterns she doesn't even realize she's revealing. That's the real difference. Interrogation demands answers. Observation earns understanding. Anyone can blurt out, "So what happened in your last relationship?" and hear a well-rehearsed version of events, polished, safe, and incomplete. But the man who truly sees her, he already knows. He noticed how she tensed when plans changed, how she pulled away when intimacy grew too real, how she glowed when someone finally appreciated her intellect instead of her appearance. These moments, they're not coincidences. They're emotional fingerprints, and they tell a story no words ever could. Now, don't get it twisted. Being observant doesn't mean being cold, calculated, or emotionally detached. It means being emotionally fluent. It means you read between the lines, not just of what she says, but of who she is beneath the surface. Because words are easy to manipulate. Words are often survival tools, stories people tell themselves to feel okay. But behavior, that's raw, that's real. That's where the unfiltered truth lives. So when you choose observation over assumption, you're not just dating the surface, you're meeting the soul. So here's your final challenge. Stop chasing answers. Invite them. Allow her to reveal herself organically in her own rhythm. The truth doesn't usually shout. It leaks out in the little things. In a reaction, a glance, a silence. The only question that remains is, are you paying close enough attention to catch it? 9. Conclusion. If you've stayed with me to this point, that alone sets you apart. You're no longer guessing in the dark. You're starting to see not just what a woman says, but who she is behind the words. And once you develop this level of awareness, your whole dating life evolves. You stop falling for surface level charm. You stop wasting energy on highlight reels. And instead, you begin to connect with women who are aligned with your standards, your peace, and your truth. If this video gave you even one insight that opened your eyes, drop a comment below. Let me know what part hit the hardest. Was it a moment that reminded you of someone? Or maybe a silence that suddenly makes sense? I read every single comment. Seriously. And if you're the kind of man who's ready to master the deeper levels, the psychology, the signals, the subtle truths most men overlook, then don't wait. Hit that subscribe button right now. This is just the beginning. In the next video, I'm breaking down the 5 types of emotional baggage you can spot within the first 10 minutes of meeting a woman, and how to know whether she's healed from it or hiding behind it. You don't want to miss that one. Until then, keep your eyes open, your standards high, and your peace protected. I'll see you in the next video. I'll see you in the next.